Good morning to you, and welcome to this special virtual event by Lakeview Village. 15 financial questions to ask a retirement community before you move in. We are so thrilled to have you joining us today. Just a couple of reminders. Well, maybe I should give you my name. My name is Melissa Smith, and I'm going to be your facilitator today, but I'm not the important person here. We have a terrific speaker who has joined us to bring some really valuable information. And of course, we're going to check in with Lakeview Village too to see how things are going there. Now, reminder that we're coming to you over the internet, and we always like to remind you that if for any reason the live stream should stop on your end, that you just want to hang on tight because it will come right back. Again, it's the internet, so sometimes funky, weird things might happen. But it's never happened to us, to be honest, but we just like to say it up front. It's sort of like, you don't want to jinx it. So you want to get those things out there, but I'm sure everything will work out just fine that way. If you have a question today, where you're able to ask that question is right there on your screen. You click ask a question. A form will open up at any time. You could do it right now if you want to while I'm talking about it. You put in your name, you put in your question, you hit submit, and that will come to us, and we will be able to ask that question for you to our presenters today. So wanted to bring that to your attention, and literally you can do it at any time throughout the presentation. For those of you who haven't learned about Lakeview Village, wow, it is quite a place. It is 100 acres that are absolutely beautiful, sitting in Lenexa, Kansas. And we really ask that you stick around after our financial presentation so that you can see what's going on at Lakeview Village and hear from Colette. They've got new construction going on. They're doing independent living tours now, and we really do want you to meet Colette, who's a very special person at Lakeview Village, and the question and answers at the end. So now to our presenter today, our main presenter, who is Terrence O'Malley. And Terrence is an attorney in Kansas City. He's been practicing for 25 years, specializing in estate planning, probate, and trust administration in Kansas City. And there are so many really cool things about him that I want to point out. One is that he is a certified aging services professional. He's the author of this book right here, which is The Financial Intelligence of Living at a Continuing Care Retirement Community. And he is also something else that a lot of people don't know about Terrence. Now, if you've been around Kansas City, maybe the last 10, 15 years or something like that, you may already know this, but Terrence wrote another book on a whole different subject, and it is called Nellie Dawn, A Stitch in Time, which he later produced, directed, and turned into a documentary. So if you haven't seen it, it's amazing. You can find the book on Amazon, because when I knew we were going to have Terrence with us today, I immediately went to Amazon to check out the book and see how folks might be able to get it. And I know the documentary is out there too. So Terrence, I know you're here. I think we're going to pop over to you here for your presentation at this moment. So Terrence, how are you? There you
All
are.
right. All right. Very good. Thank you, Melissa. I
Good.
appreciate it. Yeah.
We're in the same studio, but we're social distancing. So if you see us pop over and look at each other, that's why. But yeah, so the Nellie Dawn thing, we're going to have you come back sometime just to focus on that, because it's
Sure.
such a cool story.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Would love to present on it. But today's subject is 15 financial questions to ask before moving to senior living. I broadly characterize it as the financial intelligence of living at a senior community. And I want to tell you that I really have had the benefit of traveling throughout the country and experiencing many what they call life care communities, but you also hear the term community continuing care retirement communities. They're the same thing, life care communities, CCRC. So when you hear those two terms, they're interchangeable. They mean the same thing. So sometimes I may refer to it as a CCRC, sometimes I may refer to it as a continuing care retirement community, and other times I may refer to it as a life care community. But the great thing is I have had the benefit of experiencing presentations from New York to California and Florida and many states in between. I have stayed at, I'd say at least 60 or so continuing care retirement communities. And I can assure you that Lakeview is one of the nicest and one of the best CCRCs in the country. Now, things we're going to talk about here today, some strategic thinking. And I do want to explain that my role here today is not so much to get into the specifics of contracts at Lakeview. Colette is the expert on their contracting process and what their contracts are. Rather, I'm here to help edify you and to inform you so that as you go about your decision making process, you know the good questions to ask, some penetrating questions, so that you can get the information that you feel like you need to make an informed decision before you would move into any senior community. So we're going to do some strategic thinking. We're going to talk about governmental plans, the benefits of a quality life, on-site health care, tax deductions, home ownership, pros and cons, and then it will open it up to questions and answers. But the first thing that I would ask all of you is, how many of you can say that the next 5 years of your life is going to look just like the previous 5 years of your life? I mean, we can't do it. We don't know what the future holds, but what we can do is look backward on our life experiences and then project forward. What are we going to need? What should we anticipate so as to enjoy a quality life, especially in our senior years? And the reason why this is important is we're living longer as a species. We are just living longer. And so you have to think, okay, well, if I'm given more time to live, how do I maximize the quality out of it? If you were a child born in 1900, you had a life expectancy of 47 years. If you're a child born in 1990, you have a life expectancy of about 77 years. So you can see that we've increased just over the course of 100 years a life expectancy by 30 years. And of course, we all know people who have lived well into their 90s, and to be centenarians, people that are 100 years old. And just as a matter of trivia, people that are in their 90s are called nonagenarians. You've heard of octogenarians and septuagenarians. Well, people in their 90s are nonagenarians. And so as we endeavor to go about planning for an extended life, there's basically two things you really need to think about: is what are your wants and what are your needs? What are you going to need to experience a quality life? And what do you want to get out of life moving forward? And as an estate planning attorney, I have this conversation virtually every day with clients, and that is, you want to take control of the decision making process. You don't want to sacrifice your ability to plan for yourself and put it into the hands of somebody else because you might not like the decisions that they're making on your behalf. But if you've already made them in advance, then you are going to be able to experience life on the terms that you want, which is why I would encourage everybody out there definitely to have a living will or an advanced health declaration and powers of attorney, a durable general power of attorney for finances, property, and assets, as well as a healthcare power of attorney, so that if you become incapacitated, somebody can help you in making those decisions. And I can tell you, it is calamitous when somebody becomes incapacitated and they don't have those types of legal instruments. So I would beseech everybody to do that level of planning. And here's the deal: if you do the planning yourself and plan for your own well being, well, you're really going to do a great service for your family and your loved ones and your friends because they're going to worry about you. They're going to be very concerned if if you're living alone, isolated by yourself in a house, and something should happen to you. You could take obviously you could take a fall. You could have a medical event. You could be the victim of a crime. You just don't know. And so by taking the process into your own hands, you maximize your own wellness, you relieve the concerns of your family, friends, neighbors, you reduce everybody's stress level because now you've got a plan in place and it's working. And you shift the focus away from the negative aspects of aging and onto the positive aspects of aging. And I was with a group of friends last night, and we were talking about the things that we think are beneficial in terms of growing old, and one of it is contentment. We seem to be just more content with who we are and where we are in life, and also as if you move into a continuing care retirement community, you have an experience what we call worry-free living, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But the one thing I'm here to tell you is that the government has no long-term care plan in mind for you, okay? You have Medicare, which is a senior health care program, but it's not intended for long-term care. So that if you need an assisted living, say, or you need skilled nursing, or maybe memory support, those types of things, that's not really what Medicare is intended for. And a lot of people are shocked to find out that their benefits get cut off after a period of time with the Medicare program. And then the Medicaid program simply means you have to go broke to be able to experience it. You basically cannot have any assets if you want to avail yourself of the Medicaid program. So here's the way I look at it: those people who are uber wealthy, who have lots and lots of millions and zillions of dollars, they're going to pay for their own care anyway. And then those people that are on the lowest rungs of the economic strata, they're going to go Medicaid, because that's what Medicaid is intended for, is to catch those people and prevent them from living out on the street. So that leaves the rest of us, the great middle class, upper middle class, lower middle class, however you want to characterize yourself. We have to take care of our long-term care on our own. And there are innumerable stories about people who have had to spend down their wealth so as to be able to qualify for Medicaid. And it's not a great situation. And so if you do some planning, you can avoid that consequence. Now, the worst thing that you can do is delay and wait for a medical crisis, especially when it comes to living in a beautiful place like Lakeview, because it is essentially it is almost what you might characterize as an underwriting process. In other words, they want healthy people to come and move in to Lakeview. That doesn't mean that they wouldn't accept you, but if you have had a serious heart attack, or you've had a debilitating stroke or a brain aneurysm or something like that, well, you're probably not going to be able to take advantage of the wonderful contractual provisions that they have in those instances. So, and you can understand why it's a lot less expensive to provide a residence to somebody who is in good shape and healthy and independent living than it is to provide a residence to somebody who comes in as a skilled nursing resident. And so don't wait. Don't put it off. And one of the things I'm going to tell you, and this is from traveling around the country and speaking to many, many hundreds, if not thousands of people about this, is they always say, I wish I'd made the decision sooner. I wish I had moved in sooner. I didn't realize how great a lifestyle that this could be. And I wish I had done it 5 or 10 years ago. I get that refrain all the time. But it's certainly by delaying and having a medical crisis drive your decision making is certainly going to limit your choices. It's going to compromise your decision making. It's probably going to ensure that you pay top dollar, and it's also very stressful for your family. And again, you might lose control of the decision making process. So you've heard about this notion of aging in place, right? Uh, and so, from my perspective, what that means is I'm going to stay in my home. And, for many people, that may or may not be a good decision. A lot of people think, they're going to have to carry me out horizontally. I'm not going anywhere. But you have to ask yourself, is your house really the best place to age in place? And by that, what I mean is that senior living communities are designed to make seniors' lives as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. If you tour a community, and I want to tell you that, please tour Lakeview, please tour any community that you're interested in. There's an old saying that if you've seen one life care community, you've seen one life care community. They're all a little bit different. They all have a little bit different vibe. And frankly, ground zero for information is the other residents. Talk to the residents and see what their sentiment is about where they're living. And I think most of the time you're going to find that they are very enthusiastic about the lifestyle that they enjoy at these places. But if you go to them, you're going to see that they have lighting that's designed for senior eyes. They have wide hallways. They have ramps. They have low threshold showers and baths. They have emergency pull systems so that if you do experience a medical event, someone can be on site at your residence within minutes. They have grab bars, grab handles, elevators. They have all kinds of staff there to assist you. And so they have high contrast carpeting, for instance, so that it'll limit the possibility that you might take a fall. These are places that, and what, and it's not really provable what people, what I have been told by the children of people who have lived in these communities is that mom and dad probably lived another 3 or 4 or 5 years because of the lifestyle that they enjoyed at these communities. Now, I'm not trying to make that as a guarantee or anything. I'm just telling you anecdotally, that's what I've gotten from a lot of people. So what exactly is a continuing care retirement community or a CCRC or a life care community? Well, it offers multiple residence options, enriched lifestyle with amenities and hospitality, all levels of assistance and nursing care, and protection against rising cost of long-term health care. You basically are shifting the risk of long-term health care onto the community. Now, there are approximately a little over 1,900 life care communities or CCRCs sprinkled throughout the United States. I'm going to tell you now, they generally are among the very nicest places to live. And so you're generally assured that if you're going to a life care community, that you are really getting to enjoy a really elevated lifestyle. But what I want to do now is I want to share a short video with you that explains the contract types that you'll see at a continuing care retirement community. Basically, there's 3 types, an A, B, and C type. So why don't we roll that video right now, and then I'll come back, we'll talk more about it.
When it comes to choosing a retirement community, the choices may seem a bit daunting because there are so many variables. However, there is one type of retirement community that is easily distinguished from all others, and that is a continuing care retirement community, or CCRC. What distinguishes CCRCs is the full continuum of care that is provided to residents on site as they advance through the aging process. Independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, memory impairment, or Alzheimer's care. Not all people will require all those levels of care, but for long-term planning purposes, many people prefer to situate themselves where they not only enjoy an active community with lots of amenities, entertainment, and hospitality, but they also enjoy the security of knowing that long-term care is available without having to move if and when the need for care should arise. A second distinguishing factor is the type of contract offered by continuing care retirement communities, generally known as A, B, or C contracts. All of these contract types usually require an entrance fee deposit, which may be more or less depending on the type of contract chosen. A Type A contract is the most comprehensive and is often referred to as a life care agreement because the resident enjoys the benefit of having long-term care provided for life, in addition to the services, hospitality, and amenities offered at the community. Type A contracts usually have the highest entrance fees, but offer more predictable future costs. By choosing a Type A contract, the resident is essentially transferring the financial risk of long-term care to the community, which is a great relief for many people who are concerned about the ever-escalating costs of health care. A Type B contract offers all of the services, hospitality, and amenities of a community, but health care is usually limited to a specific amount. For example, a limited number of days in the community's health center per year or per lifetime. The specific health services are provided with no substantial increase in monthly payments. However, once residents meet the limit of health care specified, they pay either a discounted rate or the full cost of those health care services from that point on. These so-called modified contracts generally have a lower entrance fee than a Type A contract, but the resident also retains much of the financial risk of long-term care. A Type C contract is essentially a fee-for-service agreement, whereby a resident enjoys all the services, hospitality, and amenities of a community for an established fee, but additional health care services are not included in the contract. The resident usually pays the established fee-for-service rate for health care, but typically is given priority access to those services. Also, the entrance fee deposit is usually less for these types of contracts.
Okay, so at Lakeview, they like to call themselves a true life care community. And I think you can see that as a Type A contract community, you're going to get the highest level of services when you move in there. Lakeview Village is a not-for-profit community. And when you're a not-for-profit, you always have a mission statement, and they share their core values of integrity, growth, optimism, community respect, and then their mission is dedicated to strengthening the lives of older adults within a non-denominational faith-based community. There are a lot of benefits when you're looking at a senior community as to whether you want to go to one that, say, is for-profit as opposed to one that is not-for-profit. And obviously, Lakeview is a not-for-profit organization, which means it has mission-based values. The income it receives is reinvested into the community, gets favorable tax credits and exemptions, preferred pricing on goods and services, which helps them keep their operating costs low with lower fees. And let me tell you something, I have been at communities that are really not even as nice as Lakeview is, and yet the entrance fee is, north of $1 million. And so in terms of a good deal, and it's a benefit we get living in the Midwest. You get this high quality of lifestyle for a very affordable price. And you don't have shareholders who are basically taking money away from the community so as to, provide them profit. It all gets reinvested into the community. And this is the most critical point. When you live at a life care community like Lakeview, if you run out of money, you will never be asked to leave. So let me go to this second video I want to share with you, because it's really important that you understand this. And we will get to the 15 questions, but I really want to share with you more information, because I really want you to be informed to be able to make good decisions. And so this is important when you're looking at the contract at Lakeview or any continuing care retirement community or any senior community where you won't see these provisions in the contract. So let's go ahead and roll that video, and I'll come back and elaborate.
Persons researching continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs, will typically encounter a home for life contractual provision stating that residents will never be asked to leave a community so long as they abide by the contract. But many CCRCs expand upon the home for life concept by promising residents in writing that even if they run out of money, they will be able to continue living at the community. These are called benevolence clauses. How can communities possibly afford to make that financial commitment to residents? Understand that no senior community wants its residents to run out of money, which is why seniors' financial ability to pay is usually reviewed prior to residency. Typically, a long-term plan is worked out with residents applying a formula to determine their financial ability to pay. For instance, a community may want residents to have assets twice the amount of the entrance fee and monthly income 1.5 times the monthly service fee. So if the entrance fee were $250,000, then a community would want persons to have $500,000 in assets. If the monthly service fee were $3,000, then a community would want a resident to have $4,500 in monthly income. Formulas vary from community to community, and it's appropriate for seniors to inquire about what formula a community may be using to determine financial eligibility. Many communities have established foundations with money set aside and invested that can be used to offset the cost of a resident who no longer has enough income and assets to pay for a residence. However, before a community taps into its foundation to pay for a resident's living expenses, the resident must usually deplete his or her own assets before a community would start subsidizing that individual. That includes spending down the refundable portion of an entrance fee. Also, communities protect themselves with contract clauses that hold residents accountable. These clauses vary in detail, but essentially provide that if one's inability to pay is not due to one's own carelessness, then communities will not terminate residency. Here's an example. We will not terminate this contract if, in our sole judgment, your inability to pay is not the result of negligent, willful, or unreasonable dissipation of your assets and does not jeopardize the financial security of the community or other residents. Just because a community may not include benevolence provisions in its contract does not necessarily mean they are not committed to the expanded Home for Life concept. If you inquire, you may discover that there are some longtime residents who continue to live in a community even though they've exhausted their ability to pay on their own. Whether the promise is in writing or not, communities do not publish who is being subsidized, thus preserving residents' dignity and respecting their privacy.
Okay, so I hope you can that helps you understand that the community makes a commitment to you when you move there, and if it can happen, but you'll never be asked to leave if through no fault of your own that you were unable to continue to afford living there. But nobody wants that to happen, and so obviously there's a lot of great planning that goes into moving into a residence like this. How do you value the value of on-site health care? I mean, it's priceless, really. I've heard people say, there's no way to really put a dollar amount on this. You have direct entry into the medical services that are provided. There's no admission fee. It's Medicare certified. You have social services, round-the-clock nursing services, and long-term residential care right there. I've experienced numerous situations where people have moved into some type of other living, and then they have to move again because they need some type of extended care. Well, you don't have to do that when you move into a place like Lakeview. Now, there are real tax advantages to continuing care retirement communities. And by that, what I mean is, and I'm going to show you a video that explains it. The video is a little out of date because it still uses 7.5% as the gross amount of that the medical expenses have to exceed of a senior's income. It's now 10%. Okay, so what do I mean by that? Well, it means that if you experience out-of-pocket medical expenses that exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income, those become deductible. Okay, now they did just expand, or a few years ago, expanded the standard deduction, but nevertheless, this tax deduction can really come in play, especially as it relates to the entrance fee and as it relates to your monthly service fee. And the reason why, and this is huge, Lakeview has been attributing for the last 10 years or so, 45 to as high as 48% of future medical to your entrance fee and to your monthly service fee. So to the extent that your payment of that future medical exceeds 10% of your adjusted gross income, that becomes deductible once you've exceeded the standard deduction. Let me roll this video. It can do a better job than I can explaining it. And so we'll come back and talk a little bit more about it.
The Internal Revenue Code allows a deduction from an individual's income tax for medical care expenses for taxpayers, their spouses, and dependents. Those expenses cannot already have been compensated by insurance, and the deduction only applies to expenses that exceed 7.5% of the taxpayer's adjusted gross income. In 1996, the Internal Revenue Code was amended by the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, to specify that medical expenses include qualified long-term care services. Numerous IRS rulings establish that portions of entrance fees and monthly service fees paid by independent living residents of continuing care retirement communities are deductible to the extent that they represent a charge or prepayment for future assisted living or skilled nursing care. The practice of most CCRCs is to provide their residents with a statement at the end of each tax year advising what percentage of the entrance fee and what percentage of the monthly service fee are apportioned as prepaid future long-term medical care. Because the entrance fee is a one-time only payment, its qualified portion can only be deducted from income taxes for the taxable year in which it was paid. However, the monthly service fee qualified portion can be deducted from year to year. So let's take a look at how this might work, with the caveat that you should always consult with a qualified tax accountant, tax attorney, or financial advisor whether the deduction is allowed in your circumstance. Let's say that you, the taxpayer, have income of $50,000 a year. Presuming you're 65 years of age or older, then your threshold amount that you must pay before a deduction is allowed is 7.5%, or $3,750. Now let's assume that your entrance fee is $250,000 and your community apportions 10% of that as payment for future long-term medical care. 10% would be $25,000. Let's also assume that your monthly service fee is $3,000 with 20%, or $600 monthly, $7,200 annually, apportioned by your community as payment for future long-term medical care. By adding the $25,000 portion of the entrance fee together with the $7,200 monthly service fee, you have $32,200 of future medical, which is offset or reduced by the 7.5% minimum threshold amount based on your annual income. So theoretically, you could enjoy a $28,450 tax deduction following the first tax year that you live in a community. And remember, you can continue to deduct a portion of your monthly service fee from your tax burden annually once you reach that threshold amount as set by the IRS.
Okay, so again, I want to stress that the amount that has to exceed your adjusted gross income now is 10%. They used to give a break to seniors. They don't do that anymore. So before you can start deducting medical expenses, has to exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income. And of course, you would probably have to itemize on your taxes. But this idea was given to me actually by a Lakeview resident many years ago. I think he actually wrote a little booklet on it. But what if you did this? You know, the first year, let's say that you had an entrance fee of $200,000. And I am just using these figures for illustration. Again, I've been at places where entrance fees are $1.3 million, and I've been at places everywhere in between. So just by way of example, though, let's say that the entrance fee was $200,000 and 48% is attributed to future medical. Okay, well, that then gives you a $96,000 future, $96,000, and to the extent that $96,000 exceeds your adjusted gross income and also eclipses what the standard deduction is, that becomes deductible for you. So what if you did this? Now, a lot of people don't earn enough income to take get the benefit of the deduction because they're in their senior years and they're now they're now earning less money. Okay, well, what if you did this? If you took the money out of a qualified account like an IRA or a 403b, 401k, 457, a SEP or simple plan, something like that, and you distributed the money, you did a conversion to a Roth IRA. Okay. Now, obviously, when you take that money out, it gets taxed as ordinary income, but you would have the offset of the future medical deduction that you got when you paid your entrance fee. And then that continues as well, month by month by month, with the monthly service fee. So you could actually take advantage of this and withdraw money from your IRA, which you normally will be taxed on, move it over to a Roth, but then you'll have the tax deduction offset because of the future medical. Again, these are things that you need to talk over with a financial advisor or a CPA or a tax attorney. But it's definitely worth exploring for you. And it is a great benefit when you live at a life care or a CCRC. So what is the intrinsic value of amenities, hospitality, programs, services? I've tried to put a financial value on it and I can't do it, but I can tell you now that if you don't place an emphasis on these things, then you're kind of missing the whole concept. Because if you just move into an apartment, does that apartment manager care whether or not you have good nutrition, that you have immediate access to health care, that you have access to programs, entertainment, libraries, and a whole range of things to do? Do they care whether or not you have society, community, people to engage with? They don't care about any of that stuff. But that's what you get when you go to a continuing care retirement community. It is really a philosophy toward life. Now, many of you may have long-term care insurance, and it fits in beautifully with life care communities. The reason being is that if you are come in as an independent living person and you need to go to assisted living, say, okay, well, you're probably going to be able at that point to avail yourself of your long-term care life insurance, and that now will pay for much or maybe all of your monthly service fee when you move to a higher level of care. So it fits really well, but here's the deal. If you don't have long-term care insurance, that's what the life care plan is all about, is that if you need to go to a higher level of care, then you're going to experience that care at rates that are consistent with where you were living at the time, or with a few minor adjustments. And those are the things you really need to talk with Colette about. I don't want to go too deep into their contracts, but those are things I want you to ask about. And you always have great entrance fee options because it fits well with estate planning. I do estate planning on a daily basis, and you can set up the entrance fee, say, to pay once you're no longer a resident. If you pass away while you're living there, you can have it pay to your revocable living trust and be distributed to your family, to your beneficiaries that way. So I kind of call it a lockbox. You're taking this money and then you're putting it with the community, and then upon your passing, it gets paid to your estate plan, which I hope most of you have a trust. That's usually the vehicle of choice these days for estate planning. Now, one of the things is that they call it the silver tsunami. You're going to have 72 million people that are over age 65 in 2030. There's not going to be enough senior housing to go around. So what you're going to find is that senior housing is going to start becoming a premium. And that's one of the things I would tell you is don't wait. Now, what is your monthly service fee used for? All these different things: upkeep of grounds, common areas, appliance maintenance, cable, internet, water, sewer, electricity, heat, air conditioning, pest control, roof, water heater, driveway foundation, smoke detectors, fire sprinkler system, emergency alert, 24/7 transportation, meals, parking, 24/7 access to resident nurses. I put this up here because you really do have to understand these are things that you are actually paying for right now, that will be included. What is maintenance-free living or worry-free living? No repairs, no mowing, no raking, no painting, no upkeep, no service bills. The way that I like to describe it is, if it was there before you got there, it's their problem, not your problem. So that if there's a leaky faucet, or the blinds are broken or something like that, they come in, they fix it, and it doesn't cost you anything, and they're on their way. Now, a lot of you are living in a house thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get out of my house? What do I do about my house? The first thing I'm going to tell you is your house is trapped in an illiquid asset. It's not really doing much for you. Now, it has been nice. We've had nice escalation, appreciation of home values during this period of COVID. There's very little out there on the market because people aren't moving as much. But a house also doesn't give you any interest or investment income, and depreciation risks are often beyond your control. And I live right here in Kansas City, and I put together how much it has cost me to live in my house since 2002 up till today. I've spent roughly $175,000 taking care of my house: roof, gutters, deck, windows, electrical. I mean, all this stuff. I just had to put in new flooring this year. And so don't think for a second that by living in your house, you are not paying for living there. You may have the mortgage paid off, but you still have these pretty heavy financial expenses on a monthly basis. There you can see a pool renovation there, people fixing my pool. Well, let me assure you, that cost a lot of money to do that. But if I hadn't done that, I would have had a disaster in my backyard. So now there are some risks you can't control that will depreciate a house: neighborhood foreclosures, increases in crime, poorly funded school districts, an anemic economy, weather disasters, and great white sharks attacking your house. Now, what I mean by that is we don't know what could cause the devaluation of a house. There was a horrific crime committed in a neighborhood not that far from me that had a very depressive effect on the value of houses. And the people that lived there in that community, they didn't have anything to do with it, but a lot of people just didn't want to move there because of what had transpired there. So sometimes things are just beyond your control. And your deed is not going to pay for repairs, maintenance, wellness, fitness instruction, education programs, hospitality, events, entertainment, or emergency response systems. Now, when is the perfect time to sell your house? Hard to say. But what I can tell you is, so long as you're sitting in your house and you're not availing yourself of it as an asset, you are depriving yourself of a great lifestyle that is available at a place like Lakeview. And so, why not get it done? And that's another thing. You're not in this alone. They can help you. They've got all kinds of services that will help you, clear out the clutter, downsize, sell things, gift things, donate things. I mean, there's all kinds of services out there, so you don't have to do it alone. And hopefully, if it seems overwhelming to you, don't let it be, because Colette and her staff can help you immensely organize the process. Now, real quick note about capital gains taxes, because some people may be concerned, well, if I sell my house, I'm going to get hit with a big capital gain. I've owned it for 30 years or something like that. Well, the way capital gains works when it comes to primary residences is that if you are a couple, you have a $500,000 capital gain exemption. If you are an individual, you have a $250,000 capital gain exemption. So if you bought your house for $100,000 and you sell it for $250,000, you have a $150,000 capital gain. Well, you're not going to pay that capital gain because it's exempt. Now, if you're a married person and your spouse passes away, you have 2 years in which to sell the property to get the $500,000 exemption. And after 2 years, it goes to $250,000. So here are my top 10 reasons why living at a CCRC makes financial sense. You don't have any homeowners insurance, no property taxes, no risk of house depreciation, no major repairs, maintenance, no utility bills, no appliance purchases, all amenities included, and dependable budgeting. I think that's huge because every year that your contract renews, you're going to know virtually to the penny exactly how much money you're going to spend. And so that helps you manage the process and helps you plan, and keeps everything solvent, and it basically takes away the concern that you might have about being able to afford unexpected expenses. You're less likely to outlive your wealth, and your future is secure. So, with that said, what are you purchasing when you move into a continuing care retirement community? In my mind, you're purchasing happiness, security, peace of mind, and a life plan. All right. I think now that we can go to the questions and answers, and I know people have questions because we have 15 financial questions to ask before moving to a senior living community.
And 15 questions is just the beginning, correct? In terms of the the questions that people need to ask when they are thinking about making a move like this, correct?
Abs-
And we have that also put together, and we're going to send it to folks just so you know, Terrence.
Okay. All right. Very good. And in my, book, the questions are included, and then even more questions. And then the book itself has a lot of, addresses a lot of the issues that I touched on here today.
Fantastic. So, Terrence, why don't you take a quick drink of water? We're going to get to Q&A with you in just a moment. You've shared so much with us, which has been really great, valuable experience. And we also already have some questions coming in that folks are going to want to hear. And while we're collecting those, remember you can still submit. So go ahead and do that. I want to pull Colette in here right now for kind of an update on what's going on at Lakeview Village, because I know there's always so much going on at Lakeview Village, which is I can't say enough about this community. And honestly, Colette does not pay me to say these things because it is just absolutely this beautiful community that sits in Lenexa. And Colette, it's got to be fun just going there for work every day.
It is. It's a beautiful place, and a lot of beautiful people live here that are fun to know.
Absolutely. Well, why don't you take us through what's going on there right now?
Very good. Well, I'd first would like to thank Terrence because he did a very informative presentation, and we are very grateful here at Lakeview Village for our longtime association with you, Terrence. And Lakeview Village is working very hard, as you'd imagine, to keep our residents safe during this pandemic. It really is our primary focus. And so, we have been safely offering tours since May, and we haven't had any issues in our independent living areas for people to come in. And we, of course, have screening questions and masks required. But if you do want to come in for a tour, please feel free and safe to do so. And from some of you who have been thinking about moving to a retirement community like Lakeview for a while, I would say to you, if you thought it was a good idea before, it's still a good idea to come to a retirement community for all the benefits that Terrence mentioned. And we have also have had people moving in to new homes and existing homes here at Lakeview Village, and they're enjoying their lives already. So, and the people that you're seeing in these slides, and we'll go to the next slide now. You'll see some folks on bicycles, and you'll see a picture of one of our remodeled apartments at North Point. And so we have been here a long time, since 1964. And I'm glad Terrence mentioned our nonprofit status because that's an important feature of what we do. And we do have a regional reputation for quality independent living services and healthcare services in a wide range. And you may not know, but we are the largest continuing care retirement community in the state of Kansas. And about 700 people live here and enjoy their lives here from all over the country, folks, and some from around the world. So you will meet some very interesting and kind people here at Lakeview. Now, as far as the floor plans, I mentioned here that we have dozens of floor plans to choose from, and we hope that we can find something to suit your personal style and, of course, your budget. That's important too. Okay, let's go to the next slide. And we are guided by a very dedicated board of directors and an experienced executive team and lead team that have been here quite a while, many of them. So that's good for you to know that we are not only a well-established community, but that we have tenured people working here too. And Lakeview Village is a financially sound organization. And so we feel very confident that and you can too, that your entrance fee will be well managed. And if it's a refundable entry fee plan that you choose, and we do have those, that you will be able to, or your family, access that entry fee when that time comes. So we are here for the long term, and we are working hard to keep our community sustainable for many, many more years. All right. So many of you have been out here, but if you haven't, you see here the picture of the gardens and some of the folks getting their fresh tomatoes and other cucumbers out of the garden. It was a good year this year, I hear. And below, you'll see a picture of our North Point balconies. It's a gorgeous view up there, and you'll see the 3-acre lake. A lot of people love to walk around that lake and enjoy their activities. So overall, I think what I'm trying to tell you here is that when we're not having fewer people out and about because of the pandemic, but people are getting out safely, they really enjoy themselves mixing with others, going to dinner, which we aren't quite there yet to do, but we hope to be when we can do so safely. But they can walk around our 100-acre campus, lots of trees here because we are a mature campus with a lot of beautiful old trees. And if you haven't seen where we are, we're kind of tucked away, as Valissa said, into this little scenic area in Lenexa, and we are close to Flum, and so it's not hard to find off of 87th or even 95th. And we do have a 100-acre lake, excuse me, not a 100-acre campus, and we have a couple smaller lakes here that are fun. And we're close to a lot of things, such as Lenexa City Center. If you have not been out west of us, it is really something. Lots of new shops and mixed use community that you really should see. And we're close to Shawnee Mission Park, Oak Park Mall, and we're not that far from the downtown area, Kansas City, or even the airport. So some of you might say, well, I've lived in my house for 20, 30, 40 years, and we understand how hard it is to make a move. But what the good news is that we and my team and I, Deanna, Amy, Michelle, and Patricia, we have watched over the years people making that move, even though it seemed insurmountable at the time, and having a very fulfilling life with their new neighbors and having that peace of mind that Terrence talked about, which is knowing that their long-term care needs are prepaid and they have so many things to do and enjoy, and someone else is cooking and cleaning. That's a big deal too. So if you haven't lived, say, in an apartment or a communal setting ever, there are so many advantages that I think you'd really enjoy. Here you'll see a photo of one of our 60 therapists on campus. We have speech therapists, physical and occupational therapy, folks who are very well trained. We have state-of-the-art equipment that you'll see here. This is a Pilates-like machine called the Reformer. So we invest a lot of time and energy into really the latest and greatest equipment so that you can get the very best care. Now that's whether you live on our campus or not. We can offer you this rehabilitation care in our outpatient or inpatient clinic. And our healthcare services also include assisted living and long-term nursing care. Excuse me. So I want to tell you before we go to the next slide about our unique program called Life Care. Now, Terrence did touch on that, and it really does merit a sit-down meeting with my team or myself because there's a lot to talk about. The picture you see on this slide is our assisted living center. It also could be our rehab because they look alike. But the key here, folks, I want to point out that makes Lakeview different than other communities is the fact that you are getting the home of your choice, and we do a lot of things to fix it up nicely per your taste. And if and when you ever need care, that care in assisted living and or long-term care is unlimited. And people like knowing that because you may need a little care, you may need many years of care. Who knows? And so that need is taken care of in advance. So the key here, folks, at least at Lakeview, is that that rate that you're paying in independent living travels with you from independent living on up to those higher levels of care. That's the portable rate that we would love to tell you more about when you come see us. All right. So some of you might be interested in our new villas. So we have a couple slides here that will show you photos of some of our newer villas. This one here is called a London, the green villa here you see. It's a beautiful 1,600 square foot home, and it's beautiful on the inside. And we are building some new ones like it in our last phase of our construction. And we do have 2 of our 7 villas that are already reserved. And let's go to the next slide here, and we'll see that these villas can be customized to your taste. That means you can choose the finishes in terms of cabinets, flooring, paint, carpet, that sort of thing. And if you wish, you can finish the basement, but that is optional. And the homes are built to live larger than they really are, because some of you are coming from say a 3,000 square foot home or not. But in this case, if you were to live in a home that's smaller, you'd find that you have really all the room that you need, and the high ceilings and just the big windows give it a nice spacious feel. So we have the 4 floor plans that are showing there. And on the next slide, you'll see another picture of some of our Don Julian villas. And I want to emphasize Don Julian Builders because many of you know this gentleman and his great work that he's done for probably 40 years here in Kansas City. We have had a long time association with Don Julian Builders and are thrilled because when someone moves out of these homes, they're still as rock solid as the day they moved in. And that's a wonderful feeling. So we do put a lot of high-end finishes in at the base price. And we do also want to let folks know who are listening that there are some valuable savings to be had for a short time. And my team and I would be happy to tell you more about that. So we are open and we'd love to see you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Colette. I
Thank
love
you.
seeing the beautiful new homes that are going up there in the neighborhood. So I say let's get to some questions right now. And I think we're going to kind of mix them up between you and Terrence. This one I think is appropriate to go ahead and answer right now. It's from JG and it's for you, Colette. Okay. JG asks, are the contracts for 1 year? Can you have a 2 or 5 year contract? Their worry is that this annual increase in the monthly payment over a period of 10 years can really be a big increase.
Well, JG, thank you for that question. That's a good one. And so we do have 3 types of contracts, and I will get to the monthly fee part of your question. But we have a traditional contract, which means that after 4 years, there's no refund of that entrance fee, but the benefits continue for a lifetime. And then we have a 75% contract, which means 75% of what you paid comes back to your estate, and you still have unlimited long-term care. And then we have another contract called a 75% without life care for those folks who have good long-term care insurance. So we do not have shorter term contracts like 1, 2, and 3 years at this point, but that's certainly something that we would take into consideration maybe down the road.
Okay, JG, we hope that answered your question. So
Real
Terrence,
quickly, if I could interject,
sure.
and that is, I have experienced these continuing care retirement communities all over the country, and it is not. It's very much within the standard that you would see the monthly service fees on an annual basis increase. Oh, I've seen it as low as 2%, as high as 5%. If you ask that question to a community and their monthly service fees are increasing, say 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%, per year in the previous years, you've got to ask yourself, okay, what's the problem here? Because inflation especially hasn't exceeded that amount. So it's a great question, but do understand that, first of all, every life care community, every senior community raises their rates a little bit every year. But if you're seeing too high of a percentage, then that should be a red flag for you.
And Terrence, thank you for that additional answer. And I would like to add, because we are a nonprofit, none of our revenues are going anywhere else to satisfy shareholders. So we have kept our rates between increases each year, but around 3-4%. And that is strictly to keep up with operating costs, which, like your own home, as Terrence said, he spent a lot of money just keeping his house up. That's kind of the secret cost, or the invisible cost, I should say, of living in a home that we don't factor in. But so we're keeping up with those costs the same way as you would in your own home.
And another aspect of that, just to dovetail, is that my experience is that the not-for-profit communities are much more transparent when sharing financial information with
Mhm.
prospective residents, as opposed to the for-profit. Because for the for-profit, I don't like people to see how much is going to the shareholders, how much profit is being extracted out of a community. And so really you'll get the, if that's a concern of yours, then you'll get the, straight answers through the financials, which they're generally very happy to share.
That's correct.
Okay, Terrence, this question comes from Bill. We have good long-term care insurance. Can you repeat how it works with Lakeview's life care program?
Sure. Long-term care insurance typically is an indemnification type of insurance, meaning that if you qualify for benefits under your policy, which usually means that you cannot perform 2 out of the 6 daily activities of life, things like dressing yourself, bathing yourself, preparing meals for yourself, and so forth, then you're going to be able to make a claim against that long-term care policy. Well, if you're now living in assisted living because you can't perform some of those daily activities of life, then you will make a claim against your long-term care insurance. Now, it is paying for a substantial portion of your monthly service fee. And so, say that your monthly service fee was, and I'm just going to pull a number out, $2,500. Okay. Well, and let's say that your insurance benefit was $1,500 a month. And again, these are just, figures. Well, now you're only paying to the community $1,000 because long-term care is paying the other $1,500. So now you got $1,000 more that you didn't have before because you have the long-term care. But if you don't have the long-term care insurance, then that's where the life care plan comes in, because you're planning for potential future care in the form of assisted living or skilled nursing. And so the cost of it is nowhere, the increase in the cost is nowhere near as extreme as it would be if you were to just say avail yourself of those services, right off the street and not have a life care contract. And that's where, Colette needs to go over that with you, or her team does, but that's where the life care comes in. And a real quick point on long-term care insurance, that is a very unstable industry. If you were to purchase long-term care insurance, say 20 years ago, there were 100 insurance companies that offered that type of insurance. Now there's fewer than 10. And MetLife got out of it, and they were one of the biggest ones. They got out of it a few years ago. So you really need to take those policies out and dust them off and take a good look at them so that you can understand how they operate. Because the old policies didn't provide as much benefits. The new policies are probably better, but they're way more expensive. And so it's a tough decision for people to make to buy that long-term care insurance, because usually after a certain period of time, 5 or 8 years, you can no longer get a return or a refund of premium. And if you're a married couple, you want to check that there's portability between the two of you. It's kind of a use it or lose it type of insurance. After you've been in it for 10 years, it's kind of like, well, you don't want to let it go because you've been paying into it all this time. But they have the usually unregulated right to increase those premiums to whatever they want them to be. And I can't tell you the number of people that have come back to me and said, I saw my long-term care insurance increase by, 200%, the premiums. And so you really got to you really need to take a look at these policies and just make sure you understand them.
We have a couple of questions that are similar. One comes from Roy, one comes from James. Yes, we're going to get you an electronic copy of this presentation today for sure. In fact, everyone attending today, we're going to be sending you an email in the next couple of days. It's going to have those 15 questions that Terrence says you absolutely must ask. And then it will also include a link to this recorded presentation. It's not recorded today, but it'll be recorded when you see it the second time, is what I mean with that. So here is another question over here I have for, oh, here it is. It is from Mary and it is for Terrence. With new, larger standard federal tax deductions, how does that affect the medical tax deduction that comes with the entry fee and monthly service fee at Lakeview? And that may be something the two of you need to tag team on to answer.
Well, so what they did basically was enlarge the standard deduction. So a lot of people now are not itemizing. So you have to have a reason to itemize. I mean, if your income is such that the standard deduction, basically covers any other deductions that you might have had, then you're just going to use the standard deduction. But the key here is when you say pay an entrance fee, let's just go back to say it's $200,000 and 48% of it is attributed to future medical, which would be $96,000. Okay. Well, you've now, the standard deduction, I believe, is $24,000. I could be wrong on that,
Yes.
but so you're already going to get that deduction, but you still, if you take away the 24,000, well, you've still got a potential deduction of $72,000. Okay, so you may not need it. You don't have that much income. I don't need the deduction. I don't have that much income to so as to enjoy the deduction. But my point being okay, but what if you took money out of that qualified account that you had? You're going to pay an income tax on it, but you'll have the deduction as the offset. So it's a very real possibility. But again, I mean, everybody's financial situation is a little bit different. And the other thing is, when you pay your monthly service fee, let's say that your monthly service fee is $2,000 and 48% of it is attributed to future medical. Well, so every year you're going to have that future medical accruing, which may very well exceed the 10% that it has to exceed your adjusted gross income. And if I didn't mention that, to get the medical benefit deduction, it has to exceed 10% of your adjusted gross income out of pocket that you pay. So it doesn't include like Medicare premiums. It means that if you go to the doctor and you have a copay that you have to pay, that would be considered out of pocket. So as long as your medical expenses exceed 10% and you itemize your taxes, then you're probably going to get a nice deduction, the benefit of the deduction of the future medical, but it may exceed what you really need. So you might want to look at doing a financial play, which is to take that money out of that IRA and move it over to a Roth where it'll grow tax-free, and then use the medical deduction as the offset. I hope that helps.
Yeah, Colette, do you have anything you want to add to that? If
You
not, I've
know,
got another question for you, but go
I
ahead.
think that covers it very well.
Okay. So a question here comes to us from Betty, and she wants to know how many villas are left in in the last phase that are being built right now, I think is what she's asking there. Yeah.
All right. Well, Betty, we are building 7 home sites and we have reserved 2. So 5 are still remaining and they're in a terrific location near our lake, very close walking distance there. And you have your choice of, I think, 3 or 4 different floor plans still, even within those 5 that are remaining.
And yours people are still moving in,
Oh, yes.
regardless of the pandemic. Everything is done,
Right.
I'm sure, very in a safe fashion, but these are homes that they're moving to, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And they're moving into apartments and cottages too, safely.
Fantastic. Very
Yes.
good. Very good. Well, I think that it covers it for the questions that have come in. Terrence, thank you so much for your presentation today. Colette, of course, it's always fun to spend this virtual time with you that we've been doing for the last several months for sure.
Yes. Same
So
here.
we appreciate it. And again, this will be a recorded presentation. We're going to send you a link to it so that you'll have that in the next couple of days, along with those 15 must ask questions before you make a move to a continuing care retirement community like Lakeview Village. Thank you all so much for being with us. And we hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.